everybody, and welcome. I am John Stewart, your moderator, and thank you all for attending. We've got a great group of panelists today to offer expertise in the area of cross-media measurement, and in particular, the challenges, opportunities, and foresight when it comes to this ever-changing cross-media landscape. So just a quick word of intro for those of you who have attended these in the past. I think you have enjoyed a great group of experts that really are aligned with the Upwave philosophy that branding is in our DNA, and we've been long been fans of the Benet Field study out of the UK that found one of my favorite quotes. Brand building is the main driver of long-term growth, and that without brand strengthening, growth will be weaker, activation will be weaker, pricing power will not improve, and profitability growth will be severely reduced. And we believe this is even more so with the rise of cross-media, video anywhere, and that branding is ever so important in this future-looking landscape. So we're excited today. We have presenters who are experts, and we did have some technical difficulties with one. So what you have are myself moderating. I run our customer success and analytics team here at Upwave. And first, I'd like to introduce Darren Olive, who is EVP National Advertising Sales and Strategy at Crackle Plus.
Thanks for that intro. I'm really excited to be here. And as we talk about the challenges of the media industry, certainly we have challenges with Zoom. So I appreciate you guys inviting me on, and I'm glad to be here. So thanks again. We represent on the Crackle Plus side a premium owned and operated group of networks and fast channels, which include Crackle, Popcorn Flicks, and the newly launched Chicken Soup for the Soul network. In addition to those O&O networks and the supply on those platforms, we also tap into some strategic partnerships with companies like Amagi on their fast channel inventory, Crunchyroll, which is a Sony wholly owned company focused on anime, and other various OTT and virtual MVPDs, including Friendly TV, Local Now, and a series of others, to basically create an at-scale network of premium supply for our advertising partners. And we take that to the marketplace, both on a direct, programmatic, and even a brand entertainment platform as well. So again, thanks for the intro, and excited to be here.
Thank you, Darren. And next up, I want to introduce Sheena Boone, who is Chief Analytics Officer at PhD Worldwide.
Yes, hi, nice to meet you all. I am the Chief Analytics Officer here in the US. We run media, all kinds of media, online, offline, every channel. And we are very much embroiled in what's going on in the video television landscape right now. So looking forward to talking to you today.
Excellent. So we're looking forward to a lively panel. We've got a few topics that we're going to run through. Feel free to use the chat to ask questions if you have them, and we'll have a brief Q&A at the end for our panel. So let's get started. And Darren, how about maybe a little bit of a warm up here with with a question about consumer viewing habits, right? So we've been hearing for a while, especially since the start of the pandemic, a lot about the increase in CTV viewership and potentially a decrease in linear TV viewership. Is this a trend you expect to continue?
Yeah, I mean, we all see the numbers and the trends. Obviously the cable subscription, the dropping of cable subscriptions, is continuing to happen across the board. Really, just with the opportunity and the choice in entertainment that viewers now have. So I think that when we talk about kind of this death of television, that's not the case. I think it's exaggerated a bit. I think it's more of just what the evolution of television is and where those viewers are migrating to. They now have a ton more choice, whether it's wanting to pay a highly monthly fee to watch, let's just say, live sports or a premium subscription service. Now, a lot of the services are offering hybrids, so you can watch content without ads, maybe a lighter ad load or even a full ad load like we are involved in, where we're free on demand or we have fast channels that are available to everybody. So I don't necessarily know that it's this massive kind of loss or, again, the death of television, more as the evolution of media companies wanting to give the viewer the choice and put value back into their hands. As the tightening of purse strings with inflation and other challenges happen, I think everybody needs to look at how they spend their money. And that value exchange has to be in place. And I think, like I said, the media industry has evolved into offering a lot of different choice and letting them take control back from what was, again, a very kind of traditional single model of cable television. So we're excited about it. I think we're in the right space in terms of focusing fully and squarely on AVOD, and we're seeing that growth.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think from the measurement, from the brand effectiveness perspective, we've measured a lot across media campaigns, and we continue to see effectiveness for a solid media plan that has a large linear TV buy, and also supplementing with connected TV, OTT, other types of video. And so we're still fulfilling the promise of, the multi-channel exposure is going to be better than overall than the sum of its parts, and that continues today. So I don't think we're there yet for the death of linear TV. But Sheena, with this proliferation of these media options, which has caused further fragmentation, how do you think it is affecting or will affect measurement?
Yeah, it's a total mess. This is like the Wild West. So, it really comes down to clarifying what you want to do with measurement. Is it delivery measurement, performance measurement, audience measurement? Different tools, data, and technology are available for each of these, and they're quite frankly requiring a significant amount of effort to deploy today. Particularly when you want to get into granularity and the level of transparency that we require. So we actually have created a CTV standards initiative working with all the partners, just so that we can keep driving through that we have to have more transparency in the data for the CTV measurement. We're just in the nascent getting it going stage.
Yeah. And I guess with this, do either of you have an opinion or a prediction as we think about consumer viewing habits, whether we may see further or some consolidation of media partners, within the next either 3, 6, or 12 months?
Yeah, I can take that. I mean, we, as a company, we particularly have made significant investments over the last 2 years to bolster, in this case, our content and studio offering, merging with, and in some cases, acquiring companies. We know that we need to get bigger. We need to get broader and strategically partner with companies that maybe fill a need that we don't have. As I'm sure most of you know, we've entered into a definitive agreement to acquire Redbox. We saw a huge strategic relationship and, again, need and fit with that company in areas that we're not in. So we know we need to get bigger, we need to get better, and more strategic. We look at 3 things. We look at content, product, and audience. And if we can acquire a company or merge with a company that provides one or all 3 of those things, we will certainly make that investment. I'm interested to see moving forward, how content companies better align with the devices and the OEMs. There's a lot of rumors out there about some of the TV manufacturers merging with some traditional content companies. So I think that will happen. And I think also the international expansion of OTT is going to, again, cause some consolidation and partnerships, over the next, I would say, 3 months to a year, certainly. So the mergers and acquisitions are not done, and we're going to see more. And I think, they're going to certainly pick up a bit more in the next couple of months. And when we're part of that, we hope our deal is closed pretty soon too. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only thing I'd add to that. The only thing I'd add to that is what we're seeing from our clients. We've got to have some consolidation because the cost of and the resourcing required to do everything with it being so disaggregated right now is just, it's prohibitive long term. So the ability to deploy needs to be simplified. So we hope that it comes along, and our clients hope that it comes along quickly.
Yeah, agreed. And through the magic of technology, we now have our our panelist and expert, Lori Burns Larson, General Manager, Research and Insights at Dish Media. So Lori, I'm gonna just throw you right in to weigh on this topic. We're talking about multi-currency, TV marketplace. And how that relates to, sort of fragmentation and consumer viewing habits. And so with all of this fragmentation, do you believe that there might need to be one currency, or maybe what impact does a multi-currency have on all of this?
I'm glad. I apologize for the technical difficulties, but very happy to be a participant. No, there doesn't need to be one currency, because there isn't a single currency right now, and there hasn't been for quite some time. And if we're talking about what the definition of currency is, it's an agreed upon metric that you transact upon. Now at Dish Media, in advanced television, addressable across Dish as well as Sling, we've been using multiple sources for quite some time, because we are data agnostic. We work with multiple partners. We work with multiple data sets, and that's what's important. I grew up with the other N-word of Nielsen, and right, that was the single currency. It was easy, but it hasn't been easy for quite some time. So that caused folks to look towards other options, and the consumer just moves too fast. We're talking about fragmentation. Gosh, there's so many options. Think about our own personal habits, and then you think about the media landscape, and then so many different options. And I think I heard Sheena say on the phone, I mean, it's a mess. It's a mess, but we're trying to clean it up and trying to work with everyone to see how we can test and learn. And we're not relying on one currency.
Yeah, I agree. And I also think, when we're talking about currency, I think there's still a temptation for the industry to focus on age and gender specifically, which feels like sort of a relic of the old TV days before there was, a little bit more advanced targeting capabilities for, the same sort of viewing experience. I guess I'll throw this out to the group. What other forms of currency should we be thinking about?
Yeah, I can take that. I think, even the evolution of age and gender, I think, the old norms and the N-word that was just talked about in Nielsen. And I think we're getting better we're looking at age and gender a little bit of a different way. I mean, we're working with companies like iSpot right now to prove out incrementality to other media sources. Are we driving efficient reach when somebody spends money with any of our Crackle, Popcorn Flicks, or Chicken Soup network? So we're trying to evolve even just the age gender discussion. But if you think about the fact that, you're looking at behavioral targeting and being able to kind of cross-cut your audiences and find those behavioral segmentations, that is included in virtually every one of our campaigns now, either as a primary or a secondary. I think what also is, frankly, what's old is new again, is contextual targeting. We have a lot of advertisers that come to us specifically for our originals or exclusives content they can't get anywhere else, and they want to be aligned with that brand. And then within that environment is then being able to create interactive advertising, shoppable ads, and other experiences, so they can take a deep, kind of next level opportunity within that ad capability. And obviously working with you guys, we've done some amazing campaigns with in-show and out of show media that we've been able to quantify. So it's really about what's most efficient and effective to them, and giving advertisers and brands options for, like I said, primary, secondary, or tertiary guarantees, if that's what they want. So I think, back to Lori's first comment, I don't think we need to have one currency. I think we can have multiple, but just making sure that we identify what those KPIs are pre-campaign, so that nothing is theoretically caught off guard and there are no surprises.
Yeah, I'll just echo a little bit too, because you want meaningful metrics. And that's what is key. And now we're able to look at more meaningful metrics. Let's talk about website visits, online visits. Are we enhancing sales? We can look at that. So it's just so much more. And it is and can be overwhelming. And then just to kind of dovetail a little bit more about like what we were speaking about currency, but currency and measurement have often been confused, even with lots of different experts and folks in the industry. And the currency should be what you transact upon. And then the measurement opportunities do offer the foundation for currency, but there's so much that you can look at. And that's what it's like being a kid in the candy store. There's so much to look at and there's so much to prove. And we just want to help the advertisers. And it's, you know, looking for those insights, and each campaign is different. So you can use different partners for different campaign goals.
Yeah, I think that really hits the nail on the head, right? It's not always just about, you know, counting. You have to understand the goals and objectives of every campaign and understand how do you best put those media dollars to work. Sheena, how are you guys tackling this you know, idea of whether currency versus measurement are interchangeable or not?
Yeah, that topic I have presented to nearly all of our clients over and over since last October. But I, you know, take it back to the data and the origins of the data. So we have data for planning, data for currency, data for delivery measurement, performance measurement, sales measurement, brand measurement. You know, it's like there's different data sets used for all of those things, like Lori was saying, with many different tools and technology. But the most important thing, I think, is for everyone to understand the data they're using. I think because everyone was doing everything one way for so long, people stopped thinking about the meaning of the data behind it all in some cases. And so what we try and do is just get everyone to, what data are you using? Can you explain it? And how much do you understand it? And then we work on that education, both with our teams and our clients. But a big piece of that is also knowing that the data used for planning, the data used for currency and measurement probably aren't gonna match. And we had a recent example in the last couple of weeks with a big client where the internal analytics team was like, we don't know why the data isn't aligning. We seem to be losing data. And then they said, we're using iSpot. And we're like, oh, that's why, because we gave you planning data from a different source. And we're like, oh, okay. And once everyone knows it, then everyone can let it go and know that each data is its own source of truth, but that you shouldn't be blending them.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point about you know, sort of consistency in your measurement and understanding where the data comes from and how you're gonna, what actions will you take or decisions or insights as a result of that. I guess you know, that's maybe a nice segue into kind of our next topic, which is this idea of, you know, future proofing, right? So I think we've seen a lot happen within the privacy space over the last year or two. You know, what do you guys think about what's the next wave of future proofing and privacy? What are we hearing from the marketplace?
Yeah, there's a lot going on. So UID2 with Disney and TTD was big news of the week on Tuesday. And then for, you know, all the other network providers, we are still using OpenAP's OpenID. So all of this is just evolving. In the CTV space, we have just been working long and hard to get, you know, multiple signals to map into a household ID. And we do that aggregating log file data, pixel-based data, you know, and direct data from the partners to really get to that household ID. But when it comes to protection and privacy, we've been, of course, focusing on the clean rooms and enabling the deployment of them across all of our clients, for which I'd say we're actually really quite ahead. We prioritized it a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, and a lot of our clients bought in right away to prioritizing it. So we are running clean rooms in many places. But we know that these direct integrations with our partners need consumer consent. And so that's why we're working with the clean rooms to get that. You know, I believe the clean room marketplace will continue to evolve, making them more accessible from both tech, integration, and cost perspective. You know, we're still relying heavily on the data science teams to execute. And as that matures, you know, it'll become more user-friendly to not need a whole statistician and a programmer to manage them. But we're watching, you know, Snowflake, Habu, and InfoSum. And then we are also working with InfoSum directly on a UID2 program. So it's a long answer, but there's just so much happening. There's so much coming. And, you know, I just think long-term, the race for scalability and actionability between publishers and onboarders, you know, will continue to be a priority. And then, of course, finally, first-party data is so important, and we all need to be working with it as much as we can.
Yeah, there's so much going on. You know, Darren and Lori, you know, from your side of the equation, what challenges, opportunities do you see regarding, you know, privacy and you know, in data?
Yeah, I think she nailed it, in that we as a company that doesn't force register, we're really focused on now kind of politely registering to acquire that first party data. That will make it a lot easier for us, again, to target consumers and provide privacy via first party again. What's exciting about the Redbox acquisition is that we're going to get access to 40 million registered consumers that have interacted with that service over the last couple of years. So we're excited to dig into that and provide that capability back. And then working with the outside companies on device graph and getting you know, closer to that household level data is incredibly important for us too as well. So we're working with the IAB and other partners to make sure that we're taking into account all the various standards and privacy laws and regulations. And like I said, we're leaning really heavily into first party.
And just to echo on board again, as far as working in a privacy safe environment, that is of utmost importance to Dish Media. And again, we're data agnostic, so we are working with all of the partners and all of the clean rooms. We have agreements with everyone, and that's where we want to make sure that we're in the position to work with our partners and our advertisers.
Yeah, you know, one of the things we think a lot about at Upwave is this idea that in the past, data has been tied to a device identifier, right? And, you know, as that sort of increasingly goes away, we have to be open to the idea that there's still plenty of data out there. There is still lots of opportunity to reach consumers in effective and relevant ways. But it might not necessarily be tied to an individual. And, you know, and so I think that makes lots of, as discussed before, things like contextual elements, you know, ever so important, and, you know, cohort level targeting and measurement starts to come to the forefront. So I think with that, we can move on to one of our final topics, which is the idea about, well, what marketers may need to focus on to produce real life business outcomes, right? And so I guess I'll ask each one of you, you know, what are the KPIs that matter most, specifically in this cross-media world?
I can start with that one. So obviously it depends on the client. We work across all verticals, and, you know, goes back to sometimes measurement versus currency. But at the moment, one of the biggest questions where we go sort of back in time is, what is my reach and frequency? The distribution you just talked about and the inability to tie everything together. We're doing what we call distributed analytics to, you know, unify it all back together. But there is no tool or piece of software right now where you can pull one reach number across everything. So, 50 years of that being an easy answer or an easy question to answer is totally out the window. So we took a leap in November and started to create sort of a manual workaround while we're waiting for all the software to catch up. And so our data science team, we designed an advanced reach curve sort of builder tool using statistical modeling, and we actually built individual reach curves for every single direct IO partner. And so that is like, the most basic KPI, but we can't all answer it right now. So of course we're measuring tons of other things, performance and brand based, but that's the big one.
Yeah, I'll follow that. I mean, I totally agree. I think that for the most part, and I mentioned this earlier, our ability to measure and quantify incremental reach and efficient reach when we continue to drive that reach curve up is of huge importance. And it's in virtually every one of our conversations, again, either as a primary or a secondary case. But, even moving into behavioral targeting and, targeting a mindset, or even in some cases now business outcomes, we're looking at all things, but I think incremental and efficient reach is a constant that we get challenged on as a baseline for all media types.
Yeah, and I'll just add too, it is challenging, and we are continuing to educate ourselves as well as our clients and asking for that, because right, for 50 plus years of having, let me look at everything holistically, but now the holistic view no longer exists because you need to add things together. So with our properties in Dish and Sling and looking at the incrementality that we can add to that, that's one thing. And we try to harness our first party data to the fullest. And then of course we don't grade our own homework. That's why we work with so many different partners, but you need to do as much as you possibly can, as well as try to push the industry forward and be on all these various committees and work with the MRC in order to really have, better software, better ideas, better parameters. But it doesn't stop what, Sheena said too, as well as Darren, you have to use what you have right now.
Yeah, and I really like this idea that, what's old is new again. Is that the way to say it? Where we're talking about reach curves, not necessarily in terms of necessarily the counting aspect, but the idea that, everybody's measuring in some way, shape, or form short-term impact. And a lot of times those short-term measures don't align with overall brand tracking, right? So why did I see lift in brand impact from my campaign, but my brand tracker doesn't move? And usually it goes back to the extent to which you can reach your target audience, with at scale with the frequency necessary to move those metrics. And so you could change the minds of a small number of people and measure that using samples, but are you really penetrating your target audience in a way that is moving the needle for your brand? And I think that's just, it goes back, that's the basic question overall. So are you guys seeing, I guess based on kind of segue, that's sort of a segue into the next question. It seems like there's always this sort of challenge or battle between a distinction between what is a brand campaign and what is a performance campaign. Are you guys seeing a distinction between the two, or is it all in this cross-media world just sort of packaged into one thing?
I'm definitely getting asked this question all the time. Everyone wants their brand campaign to perform like a performance campaign. And so it's really just a matter of deciding. Another big, actually missing piece that I have not seen many clients have, and I'd love for their internal analytics teams to have more of it, is if you move a brand percentage point, how does that tie to the bottom line? And I see very, very few companies actually have that number. If they did, it would help us with this particular topic quite a bit, because we just sometimes don't know So we're now trying to give brand campaigns performance KPIs, and it becomes challenging. And I would just say in the last few years, when the bottom line has been the main focus, we are directing, a lot more budget down into the performance part of the funnel.
Yeah, I'll add to that. I think we definitely are seeing it converge. I would argue virtually every one of our brand campaigns that are identified as a brand campaign have some performance metric that we're held to and tracked and optimized against on the back end. It's kind of like that art and science combination, but that's really digital media, and that's the promise and the advantages of working in digital, is we can do both in real time. I made a comment earlier that really my only issue when merging those two things together is understanding the KPIs at the beginning of the campaign, and then making sure that we have an open dialogue and agree to what the keys of success are, so that we can go in eyes wide open and make sure that we're optimizing the campaign properly to the right metric. But absolutely, it's a convergence of both of those things together, and I think that's a good thing. I think it's extracting the full value of digital impression-based media.
Yeah, I agree, and I think one of the things as we sort of think about the measurement or the goals of a campaign and what we want to get from those media dollars, there also then becomes a question of optimization, and can I course correct? So I guess, Sheena, from your perspective, are your clients asking you, or are you recommending, how early and often do you need measurement and measurement partners to provide new types of data in order to shift outcome of the campaign, as opposed to sort of delivery, set it, forget it?
Yeah, there's lots of different frequencies in which we optimize depending on the type of client. Like our retail clients are doing it by the hour. In some cases, it's really intense. And it on the fastest basis in the video space, really, we're seeing, maybe a weekly cadence. And that's like a lot of our entertainment clients. They're certainly shifting the dollars around. But for those that have a longer attribution window to sales cycles, an automotive or something, we pull it out a little bit longer. But I'm definitely seeing, the focus on optimization is significantly increased, and the looking at the results and making as many changes as you possibly can that you weren't locked into already is 100% happening.
And that's one of our 2022 goals, is to innovate and come up with solutions that we can optimize during the campaign in a much faster fashion. So, and I'm happy that we are moving along and we're working on several different initiatives, but we're getting closer and closer to being able to work with our clients in a much more, we'll say, nimble way. I think retail, there's certain measures and metrics that are available instantaneously, but video is a little bit different. Certain campaigns, again, will take a longer attribution window, and goes back to what are the goals. But to have that more frequent cadence, certainly daily would be amazing, but we're not going to be that greedy. But to really move that up so we can just offer more. But again, it's not waiting for anybody else. It's innovating and trying to do it and having something that will be available to our clients.
Yeah. Darren, is optimization a word that kind of gets thrown around Crackle Plus, or?
Yeah, thrown around is a light word. I mean, we talk about optimization in real time with virtually every one of our campaigns. And again, it's a common theme of kind of my talking points today is being able to shift on the fly and understand again what those measures of success and those KPIs are, so we can manage against it. I mean, some of the data sets that we have today may change tomorrow, and we may have opportunities to layer in more new or innovative data moving forward, even in the middle of a campaign. And we've done that. We've been able to measure things that maybe weren't talked about or measured by the client originally. And if we see something that might be interesting to them, we share it. And it may turn into a partnership with them and that company later on, or it may help us analyze the data a little bit better, or maybe give a different perspective on what we're seeing on a campaign and how well it's doing, hopefully how well it's doing. So, it's a daily conversation with our account management team and our partners to make sure that we're optimizing in the right direction and trying to shift, again, the outcomes of that campaign to where the client needs it. So ultimately we get a renewal and a bigger relationship and partnership.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think maybe if you rewind 10 years ago, optimization was really just a word reserved for programmatic media and, how you're going to change your bidder to get clicks or whatever it was. And now, I think everybody across media world and branding is thinking about that. So that's exciting. So before we're going to hop into the Q&A, and so if anybody has any questions, pop them into the chat. But before we do that, I wanted to sort of, extend to you guys, our three experts here, regarding the topic of cross media and TV. And, as its future as a whole, what haven't we really talked about today that might be top of mind for you, or maybe your top point you want to illustrate?
Yeah, I would just probably mention that within the video ecosystem and the change that's happening, even just with the announcement, obviously with Netflix launching an ad-supported tier and the hybrid models and the choice that consumers have now, is how that's going to shape the future of the media industry and how we all transact. And, we're in the middle of or just finished up what, was considered the traditional upfront, buying period. What is that going to look like next year, the year after? Is there going to be a marketplace for premium inventory that gets struck in one finite period of time? I think that the notion of supply and demand is always going to dictate whether or not money moves in a certain period of time. But with these bigger, broader players and people like the Netflixes of the world, or even Disney Plus with the new ad-supported tier, I think it's going to change the dynamic of how we transact and when we transact large partnerships. So I think we're at the beginning stages of, again, another kind of migration or change in the media industry, how we transact, what an upfront looks like or doesn't look like moving forward. And then we already talked about consolidation. I think there's going to be another continued wave of consolidation amongst the bigger media players. And I think that's going to help buyers and it's going to help consumers.
Yeah, we've touched upon so much, but consumers love content. There's so much content out there. Where will we see, the management of content and being innovative to, help that journey? We've seen that consumers are willing to pay for ad-supported content as well. I mean, it's not just, the SVOD world. So I think I read something just yesterday or today talking about when the iPhone came out, there was one type and then there's multiple models. So things can and do evolve. So you want to be there, to help support, the consumer journey and the advertiser journey as the fragmentation will probably continue to shatter for a little bit more. And then what will we see? That would be the $1 million question or the $1 billion question.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for me, I entered media kind of later in my career, coming off the website world. And I came because of TV and video. And when I first got here, I was like, why does nobody seem to pay attention to this data and all of this area? They just kind of buy it and let it sit. And so I was just kind of surprised. I'm like, well, everyone's focusing on digital. I'll just focus on that. But so for me, I've been waiting for this moment. To me, we're finally going to get true accountability inside of this part of the ecosystem, and it's where all the money is. We think of ourselves almost more like an investment company than a media company. And my team and my job is to help drive the bottom line of all of our clients. And we're finally able to start doing that with their biggest part of their investments. So I just see this as a super exciting time for us. Disruption is a great place for analytics people to be, so that we can all work together to make a huge evolution in something that was the same way for so long. So I'm super excited, and it's mainly what I've been focusing on for the last, year.
Could not agree more. The future is now. It's a super exciting time. Okay, we are into our Q&A section, and we've got a couple of questions that have come in. First one is a little bit of a different sort of view on the topic, and that is, how do we view the role of attention in brand measurement and optimization?
I can take that one. We've been doing a ton of testing over the last 2 years with attention measurement providers. And the measurement of attention is it's done through eye tracking studies, essentially. And so you're looking at, there's like a 3-second to 8-second and a 10-second threshold, where either someone's become aware of the brand, they're going to remember the brand, or it's going to stick in the long-term memory. And these are exciting. They are panel based, and the panels are small because it requires a device that's sitting in the house with you. So it's a little bit retro in terms of it can't represent, from a measurement perspective and even a planning perspective, it can be a little bit challenging to try and use something so small. But from an insights perspective, it can truly transform the creative approach, and really help creative design the ads so that they maybe communicate in a different order than they used to, getting the message, the most important things out in a certain number of seconds. And it varies by brand type. So we actually have a lot of partnerships going on with the different tech platforms, trying out some of these providers. But it's definitely a hot topic.
All right, thank you. Yeah, that's really insightful, and I think like there's been again, like attention sort of felt like one of those kind of currency things in the early days, but there's, I think, a growing groundswell of, hey, this actually can this can tie into effectiveness as well. Okay, last question, or at least as of now, when we're thinking about incremental reach or cross-media or cross-channel reach, how comfortable are each of you or your clients with estimates as opposed to direct measurement, right? I think some think that direct, precise measurement is impossible in the cross-media landscape. So what do you guys think about, the precision of measurement, not just the precision of targeting?
Yeah, I'll take that. And I mentioned earlier the work we're doing with iSpot, and we continue to evolve and grow with that company. I think they've done a really nice job. We right now are measuring incrementality to linear TV or even to other AVODs and SVODs on an age and gender basis, and being able to, again, continue that reach curve up. We're just getting what I would say enough data in to start to make some estimates against those reach curves within a campaign. There are variables, the length of the campaign, when, what that marketing data is, how their linear load is at the time that the campaign's running. There's a lot of different variables, but in working with them for a few years now and having, now well over 100 campaigns we've run, we're starting to get to a position where we have a good view of the types of incrementality against certain demos that we can run within a period of time with a certain advertising load. But I don't think we're there yet to guarantee that measurement of incrementality or have that, again, be the primary key measurable. But we're getting there. We're getting closer, and the numbers are starting to stabilize as we get more campaigns and again, more quarters of data in. So soon, not today.
I definitely will follow up with you on that one. We are definitely not, some clients are getting more interested in it, but we're solving so much of the planning part of the problem right now that I think that will come into play more heavily in the next year. So good to know, you guys are testing and things like that. So you'll have, if the partners have more data from various things than they've been doing, it will help us to get our clients to invest in that part of the process.
Absolutely. Okay, well, thank you. This concludes the Masters of Measurement. So special thank you to Darren, Sheena, and Lori. We really enjoyed your expertise on the topic. Thank you for such a rich dialogue, and thanks to everybody that's attended. We'll see you next time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.